Previously on 3.
We all instantly went into a depression. It was hard for me to talk to people after everything I went through, and all the trauma just gave me a lot of anxiety. But then that's when I met AJ at youth group. So we're like, we figured it out. If we yell at it and tell it it's not powerful enough to do this to us, it will go away. If I had an overall goal to this, it would be to help people understand those who go looking for things like this usually won't find it. It's not always a fun or exciting experience. Most of the time, what's out there beyond us isn't positive. The people that don't believe in this stuff, I get it. I wouldn't believe in it either if I were them, hadn't seen it, felt it, stayed up all night, literally tortured by it. Those who don't believe, sometimes it's better that way. If I was given the option to change having an ability or what happened to me, I literally would in a heartbeat. Being interested and educated is one thing, but dabbling in things you don't understand, well, you'll find out why that's not a good idea.
Well, let's begin then.
Listen to me. Just listen. All of you are afraid of that house in one way or another.
If somebody asked you to go back to the house, what would you say?
No. Why does it matter if we talk about it? Nobody's gonna believe us anyway.
It's not about people believing us. I don't give a damn if people believe us or not. This is for Iris. This is so she knows when she's older and gets curious, this really did happen to us.
What do I even say?
Whatever you want to.
That house isn't a home. That house is how you get to hell. I'd rather just not go back to that house.
Okay. You just talk about what happened.
Moving the last stuff out of the basement, I unplugged the sump pump. And when I was taking the last thing out, the sump pump kicked on and it was unplugged.
And then what happened?
I slipped.
That's not true. I thought you said there was growling or something that happened.
Well, that one, I wanted to get on.
Oh, I didn't know that was a different time. If somebody asked you to go back there, would you go back? Dad?
No.
You know your family's brave for talking about it.
I know. And I know in one way or another, telling our stories helps, even if it's brief.
Did making this podcast help you?
Yes, it's like therapy for me. I'm able to make a timeline of everything that happened and find the reoccurring events in my family. This will help me get one step closer to breaking the curse.
Allie, what is the curse?
You're a normal family. You have everything you need or everything you want, and all of a sudden, when everything is perfect, a change happens. You have to move. You move into your dream home. It's beautiful. Everything you wanted it to be. You have the picket fence, the big backyard, the pretty trees, the wraparound porch. Everything they teach us growing up means success. Then someone gets sick, someone loses their job, a depression follows, an addiction starts, and then hell breaks loose. All the patterns have happened to us in 3. Whether it's death, illness, activity, everything happens in 3. You might look at me and my family and think they lived the American dream. This isn't the American dream, it's a nightmare.
So after you had the experience with Allie in the church, did anything else happen?
It took a while for activity to start up. I like to think I was able to protect her from it, at least. That's what I like to tell myself.
He did protect me, and I didn't realize it. It felt good to have someone from the outside be supportive and protective, but most importantly, not judgmental.
So, AJ, what was your first impression of the house?
I was a teenage boy, so as you can imagine, I didn't pay much attention at first to what the house looked like other than just a normal, typical house. It really just looked like a normal house until you went inside. It was dark, and I mean, like, really dark. There was barely any natural light in the house. Even if you opened the curtains and windows, anything, it just seemed like light just couldn't come through.
And did you ever see any spirits?
I never saw anything, but you didn't have to. You just kind of felt it. You felt heavy and uncomfortable, a paranoid feeling from the second you walked through the door. It just never felt right. It felt like you were walking into a haunted house on Halloween. I mean, I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but it just felt like something was going to jump out and scare you. You were just always on edge.
So when you were around Allie, do you think that might have intimidated the spirits?
I didn't think that, but I know that's true now.
The first time AJ was in our house, I didn't feel anything around me. It was like I had a force field or something around me that made it impossible for anything to touch me or just come around. Now that I think about it, it was probably just because I was distracted or just felt safe. So it would scare me from a distance or do whatever it could to make him go away.
And what did it do to scare him?
We were eating dinner with her parents, and Allie is right about the tension building up before something would happen, because I felt it. Her mom sat down at the table, and Allie and her sisters looked terrified. I didn't understand why, but it made me feel afraid. All of a sudden, Allie's mom just passes out and goes unconscious into her plate of food. Everyone got up and thought it was because she was sick, and all of a sudden she started screaming and cussing at Allie. Like Allie was the target. I watched Allie shut down and go numb, and that made me angry as fuck. I told Allie, we need to go outside, and her mom looked at me, but it didn't look like her mom. I mean, her eyes didn't look like her eyes. Her face was distorted, and when she would yell, it didn't even sound like it was her talking. It didn't even sound like her voice. I grabbed Allie and her sisters and we went outside. I mean, you could hear whatever took over her mom screaming and yelling from outside. They were shaking and crying. Allie kept apologizing and I told her to stop. I mean, I don't care what it is. I'm not going anywhere.
So, do you think that she was possessed?
I strongly believe my mom was, and it wasn't her fault.
So, why does possession happen?
Demonic entities target the weakest people. My mom was physically weak because of her illness, and internally she was strong, so it could only use her when she wasn't having a good day or her illness was flaring up, just like this day.
So what happened after this? Did it just stop?
Her mom started throwing up. I mean, like a lot. She was crying and said, "I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry." And we knew it stopped. I had to go home. And I mean, I didn't want to. Allie's dad took me home. I remember sitting in his truck with Allie in the middle seat, and we were holding hands. And none of us really said a word the whole way back to my house until a song came on. Her dad turned up the radio and he was humming the song. And I looked at Allie when I heard the lyrics. "I'd give up forever to touch you, because I know that you feel me somehow. You're the closest to heaven that I'll ever be, and I don't want to go home right now." And it kind of fit perfectly because it's just a feeling that anybody who has found their soulmate or the person who they belong with knows what I'm saying. But it's just a feeling, an overwhelming feeling of, this feels right, like I should be doing this. And I remember asking her dad what the song was, and he said Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls. And then I told Allie I think we found our song.
And I don't want the world to see me, 'cause I don't think that they'd understand. When everything's made to be broken, I just want you to know who I am.
So is that how Iris got her name?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you fast forward a few months, everything took a drastic turn for both of us. The easiest way to start this portion of the story is with the church we were going to. There was a man there that was the choir director, and of course I wanted to join because I loved to sing. The first time I met the guy, he seemed really nice, easy to talk to, and kind of like a friend, and I needed as many friends as I could get.
I never liked him.
How come?
As a guy, when another man's just being an outright creep.
See, I didn't see it that way. I tried to think of him as like an uncle, and my parents liked him too at first. He helped me with singing lessons, he drove me back and forth to choir practice, and was just someone that was there for me when I needed to talk. As an adult now, though, yeah, I can see why he was creepy. I was only 13 and I had no idea, and I thought, hey, I have another friend, until I got a text from him that even now makes my stomach drop to think about.
So he texts her asking, or more stating, so my wife and I aren't doing so well in our marriage and I need to go on a trip. I want to go to a state amusement park and I'd love for you to go with me. Don't tell your parents yet though.
I knew when I got the text message something wasn't right. Like, why would he say, don't tell your parents?
So did you tell your parents?
No, I just didn't respond. I remember the following Sunday at church, he wanted certain adults to do speeches about the relationships with like the younger crowd at the church, specifically the youth group, and he picked me. I didn't know anything about it. He went up to the front of the church and started reading off the speech he wrote about me and how he always wanted a daughter, how beautiful I was, and how proud he was to be like another dad to me. Well, my dad was sitting in the pew right in front of him while he was reading this, grabbed my hand and said, "That's it, we're leaving." That was the last time I was at that church. My dad told me, "Why would he say that? I am your dad, I'm right here. Why would you need another dad? Is there something you need to tell me and your mom?" And then I broke down crying and I told him about the text message, and my dad, of course, was furious. And I honestly don't know what was said to the man, but I know my dad had words with him enough to get us banned from the church.
I left Allie feeling really defeated. I mean, she felt like she couldn't trust anyone, and just because of my stupid actions that I took, I even became one of those people that she couldn't feel like she could trust.
What do you mean?
Right after this happened, I started feeling different. More than just hormones and teenage angst. I didn't feel like myself. I started spiraling into depression, and I just felt numb.
After AJ started pulling away from me, I wanted to just completely give up. It was harder than just like the usual first heartbreak. I felt like I lost a part of who I was. If you fast forward a little bit more, and mind you, we were still together, but our relationship was just not the same. He wouldn't be there for me like he was before, and that made me feel afraid, so I just pulled away in my own way. And right before my 16th birthday, I had a feeling something bad was going to happen or come up and he wouldn't be there on my birthday, which wouldn't have surprised me too much because of how we were doing in our relationship, but he still promised me he'd be there. I didn't think it was something horrible, but something felt wrong. Shortly after I had these feelings, I got a phone call from my dad. He said, "There's been a really bad car accident on the bridge. I'm gonna be in traffic for a while. Just tell Mom I'll be home soon. But hey, what kind of car does AJ have?" And then AJ called me.
So, Allie was the first person I even thought to call. The day before her birthday, I got in a really bad car accident on the bridge. I didn't even have my driver's license yet. My dad and I were driving out of town. So I was driving, but my dad was with me. So we were driving over a bridge. It's a 3-lane bridge. We were in the middle lane. And my dad spots something in the road as soon as I spotted as well. And I'm like, "What is that?" He couldn't quite tell what it was either, but he's like, "You need to get over because there's something in the middle of this 3-lane bridge in the middle lane." And I'm like, I can't because there's cars flying by on the left and the right lane. We're stuck in the middle. I have nowhere to go because people are going 65 miles an hour. And it turns out it was a step ladder. It was a 12-foot metal step ladder somebody had forgotten to tie down on the bed of their truck. And I've got nowhere to go. I can't go left, I can't go right, so I eventually come to a complete halt in the middle of the bridge. And my dad's like, "You gotta go, man, you gotta go. You can't be stopped in the middle of the bridge." And I'm freaking out because I'm a relatively new driver. And I gun it, hoping that I could get over top of the stepladder. And my front wheels just get stuck in the rungs of the stepladder. And before I know it, I mean, it's this whole accident probably spanned the course of 30 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. I'm stuck in the metal stepladder, and I get rear-ended by a little 4-door hybrid car, going probably also 65 miles an hour. Mind you, I was completely stopped. I was not moving at all. We get rear-ended going about 65 miles an hour. Then that car gets rear-ended by a little 4-door sedan, and then that 4-door sedan gets rear-ended by a 2-ton truck. And every car hitting the previous car in front of them caused me to get wedged in between the car that rear-ended me and the side of the bridge, just barely staying on the bridge. I mean, my fender was probably touching a 1.5 feet off the ground. My tires were up off the ground, and we probably only had about 1.5 feet left of concrete before we would have gone over the edge of the bridge into the water below, and it was about a 80-foot drop.
I knew after I was right about the feeling I had, more bad things were coming, and I was right.
So did you and AJ stay together, or what happened?
After the accident, I started having a lot of back problems. Nothing serious, but my back did hurt. I had relatively bad whiplash. So I was prescribed muscle relaxers for my back. And the first one I took, it helped my back a lot, but it also made me feel great as well. After that, I was hooked. I took more than what I was prescribed to take, and it started there. When the pain was gone, I liked that feeling, but the high it gave me was even more of an addicting feeling. So after the muscle relaxers, a few years down the line, I started having some anxiety issues. And I hadn't really been doing anything in between now and then. But with the anxiety issues, they prescribed me Xanax. And that was just as bad, if not, actually, it was worse than muscle relaxers. And it just escalated from there and built on itself.
He was a completely different person. I just thought I didn't have AJ anymore, just a piece of who he was.
I didn't really care about anything or anyone. I just wanted to get through life and get a hold of whatever I could and just ride it out. I just didn't even feel like myself. It's kind of when people say that they feel lost, I felt in myself that I was lost, that I didn't know who I was anymore.
We broke up when that happened. And then hell came back full force. I went into a deep depression. I felt like everything I loved, everyone I loved or trusted was just a lie. And I'd never in my life felt like I didn't want to be here anymore other than this time. I truly didn't want to do it anymore. I fought so hard to live, and I didn't understand why everything fell apart just like it did. Then it got even worse. I started getting sick, just like my mom. I started having ulcers develop in my mouth, in my stomach, on my skin. I had days I couldn't move or get out of bed. My parents took me to the doctor, and sure enough, I was diagnosed with Behçet's disease, the same disease my mom has. I felt like I lost the battle I had been fighting this entire time, so I just gave up.
I remember still following her on social media and things of that nature, and just watching her because I missed her. But I noticed how skinny she got, and I mean she wasn't ever a heavy set person to begin with, but I mean this wasn't just skinny. She looked sick because of it.
I lost almost all of my hair. It would just fall out in clumps in my hand when I would wash it. I couldn't eat sometimes for days because of the pain that I had in my mouth or in my throat. And one day I got up and I looked in the mirror, and I remember that I could see my ribs. And that's when my own battle with addiction started, except it wasn't a substance. It was just me. I thought maybe if I get thinner, he'll come back. Just like all women feel, we have to change to make the person we love come back. And that's not true, but I was too young to understand that. So me and that mindset of where I was then, I just stopped eating altogether. I still remember what I would eat now, and this was a really long time ago, more than 10 years ago. And it was 2 green beans and a single oyster cracker every single day for 8 months. That's all I ate. At my worst, I weighed 89 pounds. Healthy weight for my age and height then would have been 110, 115 pounds. My hair wouldn't grow back because I was so unhealthy on top of the disease that I have.
I remember seeing her at her worst, and I mean, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was afraid for her, and I mean, I still loved her just as much as the day I laid eyes on her, and I never once stopped loving her, but I couldn't hold back anymore and just let her continue to do this, so I messaged her.
When I saw he messaged me, my first thought was, oh my gosh, it worked. I thought it was my appearance I had to change, but it wasn't me at all.
I remember asking her if she was okay, but I mean, she didn't look good. She didn't look okay.
When he said that, well, I mean, that hurt even more because my first thought was, so it wasn't about how I looked.
And she told me she was sick, and I just felt devastated. I mean, even though I made all the mistakes, I couldn't just watch her get so sick she was gonna die.
I wanted to do or say whatever I could to make sure he wouldn't leave again, but he did.
I only left again because I thought I made everything worse for her just by being around.
The night after he stopped talking to me, I completely fell apart, even worse than before. My dad heard me crying in my room, and he told me, "Sweetie, if you don't eat something, I'm going to force you to eat. You're not going to die on me. There's no way in hell." And he did force me to eat. He literally put me in a chair in the kitchen, and we had this box of oatmeal cream pies, and he said, "You're not getting up till you eat every single one of these in this box." Now that might sound dramatic, but when you have a child that literally hasn't eaten much of anything in 8 months, I would do the same thing. And if he wouldn't have forced me to eat when he did, I probably would have died. So I'm thankful that he did.
So how did you manage it mentally?
I had to. I had to do it for my dad, my mom, my sisters. I couldn't let them down. I basically stayed away from AJ as much as I could because I was trying to change and better myself and get stronger, and I didn't think he cared. So we didn't talk for almost a year until the tornado happened.
I was at church, which that church is actually just up the street from where Allie and I live now. I remember people saying we had a tornado warning, and then electricity started to kind of flicker and cut out. And my dad told us all we were getting in the car, and while we were driving home, we saw the tornado forming and about to touch down. And I mean, we were hauling. I mean, it was pouring down rain so hard you couldn't see more than 20 feet in front of you. My dad was probably going a solid 90 miles an hour.
While this was happening with him, me and my family were in the basement. We had been watching the news all morning, and they had talked about how bad this was going to be, but they still didn't anticipate for it to be as bad as it actually was. I remember just being so scared I felt sick, and all I could think of was AJ's at church right now, and the tornado is right there. I literally threw up from how stressed I was, and my dad kept saying, I'm gonna go check on Pappy and Great Grandma, and when I'm out, I'll make sure he's okay. And I screamed at my dad not to leave, and so did my mom. I kept calling AJ over and over and over again, and it just went straight to voicemail.
I couldn't answer the phone, first because my parents thought the breakup ended a lot differently than it did, actually. They thought that I was the one that was in the most pain, not the one who caused pain. I mean, I was worried sick about her too, and she's all that I was thinking about during that time we were going home.
Eventually, that night, I called one more time, and he did answer.
A good portion of the town the tornado hit was completely destroyed. I mean, not even a single church in the town was touched, but there were just neighborhoods that were just gone, just obliterated.
When I saw on the news that, I mean, even after hearing from him, but still seeing on the news that like none of the churches got hit, that made me feel a lot better. But when he answered, I said, I don't care what happened with us, but I love you and I hope you're okay. And I was crying. He was crying and told me, love you too. And then he hung up.
Hearing her voice made everything that I was hurting from and all the pain just go away. I felt better. I mean, even better than anything could make me feel. And I had to find a way to see her somehow.
AJ and I both were, in a way, banned from seeing each other because both sets of our parents thought a whole different story about what caused our relationship to end than what really happened.
Whether I got into shit up to my neck or not, I was gonna go see her.
We planned a time for AJ to sneak into my house at night. Sorry, Mom. And my sister helped keep watch. She wanted us to be together too, because she always told me, he's the one for you. Like, Dad and Mom have each other. It's just who we are. You love one person, even if it gives you hell.
So I snuck over in my car, and I had my best friend in the car with me to keep watch outside for God knows what reason. I don't know what we were watching out for. But he and Allie were friends too, so he wanted to come say hi before running back into the car.
I was waiting in our laundry room for him to come in the back door, and while I was waiting, I heard 2 voices. The voices sounded familiar, but I still wasn't sure what or where it was coming from. It just sounded like it was behind me. And when the voices were talking, they sounded both like they were male and female at the same time. And it was quiet, like they were whispering back and forth to each other. And one of them was like, we can't do this. And then the other voice sounded concerned and said, why? And then the first voice said, they have too much faith, they're too strong, and we won't win. It hit me then that those voices had to be something that was in the house.
I came inside, and the first thing I did was I ran up to her and I hugged her as tight as I possibly could.
When he hugged me, I felt peace like I hadn't felt since the last time he was there.
From there on, we promised to stay together no matter how hard it would be and no matter what we would go through together.
Even if it gives you hell.
It did give us hell too. I mean, especially when we got the call.
The call for what?
To give an exorcism. In the time period of me working on myself while AJ was gone, I dove deep back into paranormal research. I knew all of this that was happening was because whatever was in the house was keeping me from happiness and from living a normal life. I learned all about demonology, how to get rid of demons, how to communicate with spirits, the proper way, all the religions, everything. If it was paranormal or demon related in any way, I knew about it and I still know about it.
She taught me as much as she could, as much as I was able to comprehend about what she knew. We both thought it would help keep us strong against whatever wanted us apart or whatever was in the house.
It worked. It still works. We became a good team. I could see the entities and he could keep the knowledge and the scientific part of it and debunking things, and it worked perfectly.
When we moved in with each other, we spent a lot of time helping other people get rid of things like she had growing up in her house, similar things that she had experienced.
I wanted to do that because we still to this day never got rid of what was in that house. So I thought, okay, this is my way to overcome this in whatever way I could by helping other people that are going through the same thing I went through get rid of it, or at least try. Getting our own place together was the most freeing feeling in the world. I wasn't afraid anymore, and nothing could keep us apart. Nothing followed me either, at least so I thought.
So when we got the call, it wasn't a direct call to perform a quote-unquote exorcism. It was more of a concerned person. And it was actually Sean's little brother, Tyler, the one who Avery was dating for quite a long time.
And was Sean the guy who Allie was dating, right? The guy who chased you with a shovel?
Yep.
His little brother dated my sister for a very long time. He was like my own brother, and I cared for him a lot, and I still do. He called me screaming and crying that something was trying to kill him, or he thought something was trying to kill him, and I tried to calm him down and ask him what was going on, and all of the stuff he was telling me added up to something dark spiritually. He knew about the stuff that happened at my house growing up, and he knew I could fix it.
When we went over there, we didn't really know what we were walking into. We didn't really know what to expect. But I mean, it wasn't with the intention of performing any kind of rite or anything.
Don't you need to be a priest to conduct an exorcism?
Should you be a priest to do this? Absolutely. Do you have to be? No. There are situations that you can be in, and if you have enough experience, you can assist in the rite of exorcism. But do not just go out doing that like it's an activity, because it's most definitely not, and it should be done by a priest.
And what's a spiritual awakening?
The reason that someone that's not a holy person or a priest can give an exorcism, you have to have a spiritual awakening. And a spiritual awakening is something that happens when you have a near-death experience, or you've literally been face to face with something that's dark, or if you've been tormented by evil and overcame it.
Which, of course, you had done.
Well, I guess.
So we get to his house, and Allie started to kind of open herself up, and she felt the presence of, previous residents and just people around Tyler. But she also felt something worse. She felt like it was almost hiding in the chaos that was their house. And I mean, their house was just an extremely chaotic environment all the time. And it would go from him to his mother, all the way down to really anybody that would be in the house.
I couldn't tell if it was a demon, or if it was a demon, what the demon was yet. It just wouldn't show itself. It was just hiding.
So he took us downstairs into the basement. The same room where I actually met Allie was now his bedroom.
I asked him when all this started happening and when he first noticed it, or if there was anything leading up to this point, and then he showed me a book.
The book, I don't even know how he came across possessing this, but the book that he had was an old book on Germanic Satanism, and he found it in the attic of one of his family members' houses.
He said, I felt drawn to this page, Allie, and I couldn't get the name out of my head. What does the name even mean? I knew the name because I'd seen it before. It was the same name David told me about, and the name of the demon that wanted me in my house. I had heard before from other people that when you go after a demon, or if you do anything to piss one off, they'll never forget who you are.
I knew when he had said the name, it was any second before something was going to happen.
The reason I've said many times is, never say the name of a demon, is because it's true. When you say the name of a demon, you're basically summoning it or provoking it, and, well, you don't want to do that.
Shortly after that, his whole demeanor changed, and when somebody says that somebody's face changes, their physical face itself doesn't necessarily change, but it becomes almost unrecognizable to the point where it doesn't look like that person naturally does. It is still that person on a surface level, but deeper than that, it's you can tell that it's not their emotion that they're evoking. Yes. And when that happened, I had a Bible and a rosary and holy water, which technically holy water, it's not some historical artifact that's impossible to come across. All holy water is just regular water that has been blessed by a priest.
I made his friend and AJ help me hold him down, and that's only done in this kind of rite to keep the person from hurting themselves. It's not because they're gonna float up in the air and hit the ceiling or walk backwards. It's simply to keep the person from not hitting themselves or hitting you. And when we did that, I started the rite and I started praying in Latin.
The moment the first few lines came out of her mouth, he started screaming and cussing and fighting. And I mean, he wasn't a very big guy. I mean, he's not a super muscly dude. He's not a huge dude, he's a teenage boy. He was just a run-of-the-mill teenage boy. And I mean, the amount of strength that he possessed, I was laying my full body weight on his forearm, and his friend was on his other forearm laying his full body weight. And he, from a laying position, lifted both of us up by moving his arm at the elbow joint, not at the shoulder or anything of that nature. I mean, we were literally holding his hands down from his wrists and I had my knees on his forearms, and he was able to lift both of us up a solid few inches, which, I mean, I don't even know a physically fit adult that could lift 150 pounds just by moving their elbow at the joint and not, putting more force into it than that.
I had to hold him down myself, too, with all I could, and was screaming at this thing. I cast you out over and over and over again. It went on for an hour, but it felt like forever.
I started praying with Allie as well. She taught me the prayer that she was going to recite and use, and he started laughing at me and started saying shit to me and making fun of me. And at one point, he even turned and spit in my face.
I told AJ, don't look at him, don't look in his eyes, don't listen to him. It's not him, it's the demon, because they want you to be distracted so you stop.
It was hard to keep my mouth shut because I've just got a loud mouth. But it was hard to keep my mouth shut, but I did.
I grabbed Tyler's face and made him look at me and said, "You have no power, be gone."
He went instantly limp and he was tensed before, and he just relaxed. I mean, he was so tense during that time that every vein on his being was bulging. I mean, it was insane. I mean, his arms were just pure vein, and his neck and his face, and he was just red in the face. And he just finally he relaxed, and it felt like something leaving the room or a rush of air going by you.
After we left, I never saw Tyler again. He went into some bad things in life, and I don't know where he is now, but if somehow he hears this, I really hope that you're okay, Tyler.
So, after we went home, life kind of returned a little bit normal. And a few months down the line, I went downstairs to take out the garbage, and that was the first time I ever physically saw anything with my own two eyes.
The first time AJ had ever seen an entity with his own two eyes was an entity I have seen many, many, many a time.
What was it?
It was Shadow Man.